The Swamp Thing, issue 11, Ram V writing with Mike Perkins on the art. Very nice to have this back. Missed it dearly. I think because he left Catwoman and then this went on a break, we've had a bit of a Ram V deficiency over the last couple of months.
For sure.
So delighted to sort of dig into this. And I think what I like about the tactic of the main gist of this issue, which is that Jennifer... Swamp Thing seems to be dead by all accounts, but Jennifer believes that he still exists in the green and is now trying to find a way to, find him, basically. And
she wants to find him because she feels like she has a connection to Levi, right? And like she's been to the green, she knows what's there, and that there's no way that he could be gone.
Well, that's not the why. The why is that she just cares about him. She loves him.
Well, no. I know that, but like the reason she believes that this, that there's no way he can be gone because she's seen the green.
Sure, yeah.
She's been in there.
But I think what I liked about this is that this is a nice shift from her character because she was in the green, but then she thought it was just a dream, or she didn't know Swamp Thing was Levi for a while. And obviously she reacted how she did when she found out, and it became more of a reality. I think the fact that after this apparent death where Swamp Thing did this heroic thing to save people, the idea that she is now fighting because she feels on some level guilty for not taking it well, and for it's like, no, I'm going to be there for him, I'm going to find a way to bring him back, I care about him. And I love the art here as well as she's explaining this stuff, Perkins' moody art, like he's only gotten better as this book's went on. And I think like dealing with the emotion that's built up now that we've really set up these characters and we have these consequences for things, and it teases who she's talking to as she's asking for help. And the big reveal is that it's Alec Holland's daughter.
Tefay.
Yeah, Tefay.
Which, okay, I've not really read Swamp Thing. My Swamp Thing begins kind of with the, Snyder to Soul era. I had no idea he had a kid. And when you look into the history, this is just Alec Holland's kid. It's super complicated. Threw me for a loop.
Yeah, I don't know much. I don't think she's been that much of a character before. I think this is the first time that she's being used properly. Like, they had a kid, but I don't know if there was like, because when I looked up in DC Wiki to sort of like just sort of confirm who the hell this was, because I wasn't that sure either. It mentioned that this was her first proper like appearance, or her first full appearance. So,
okay, good.
I suspect that to mean that there was a story about having the kid, but and maybe we saw her as a baby or something. But this is the first time she's been a character properly.
What I read was that she first off, she's a elemental being named Sprout that was looking for a vessel, but also that Swamp Thing possessed John Constantine, who had sex with Abigail Arcane and conceived a baby. And then the Sprout elemental spirit entered the baby and became Tefay Holland.
Yes.
And I'm glad we don't touch on any of that. Because I like her character just popping up as, because Alec Holland's almost treated like this mythical figure. It did. Ram V's.
Yeah, it's what's funny. I didn't read all that, but I did notice it listed John Constantine as her biological father.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, what's
that? That's what I saw too, and I was like, I gotta know more.
A little bit of a surrogate thing going on here.
Yeah, so I do like though that in the first half of this, and let's say season 1, that Alec Holland is treated as this mythological figure in the green. So the fact that they reach out to his daughter, I like that to just add to the story.
Yeah, no, I really like the idea of a character who, and I'm talking about Jennifer here, a character who was shielded from the truth throughout the first part, and then denied it, and then was like, she was just a bit of a damsel towards the end because Prescott Industries, what's his name from later, Mr.
Pilgrim,
thank you. Like her going through all this, the idea of her now fighting to get him back when she never actually had like a moment with him to kind of like show that she accepted who he was, or show that she wasn't scared by the fact that he turned into Swamp Thing, or it was this kind of quote unquote monster. I think this is a great transition to now that he's gone, and by and large, and we see that he's in the green later on for our perspective. But the idea that she's fighting to get him back is incredibly touching, because they did have chemistry, they did have this relationship, like her and Levi care about each other. So this is a really good progression for her character that really makes it feel like things have advanced, like there's consequences and there's things moving forward because of the events of the last couple of issues. And it's a really neat jumping up. Not that I would say you could jump on here if you haven't read anything, but what I mean is just jumping back in after a break. It's a really neat sort of fresh chapter to start, is her now being in the know, wanting to help, and accepting Levi as Swamp Thing in this way. So yeah, I really like her motivations here, and it really kind of propels the character into less of a side character and more of a main character. And I think that's always something you really do. That's always something you really do to set up a new chapter of any serialized story, is when you take a character who seemed smaller before and elevate them into being the protagonist of the story for a while. It kind of gives them some more importance, but also makes it feel like the story is really evolving because it's moving into a new phase.
Well,
so
I like how it's intercut too, is that it looks like when she goes to talk to Tefe, she's like, "Oh, I can't help you," and then she leaves, right? And then we get to the stuff with Pilgrim and Woodrue and Prescott Industries, and then when Tefe comes back, it does feel like, again, like this bigger moment because of what's to come. I think she could feel it, that this wasn't just someone that was looking to do something. There's real emotion behind what she wants to do. And I just like how that's handled.
Yeah, because our reason for showing up to help later is because first she says no, and then we cut to other stuff. And when she comes back later, she says basically, "I don't really care about the big picture. I don't care about saving the world. I'm kind of sick of all that shit. But I can sense that you really love this person." And what I love is that she's never actually said that to Levi. She's never admitted to him that she loves him. And I love that the art in that moment, the panel of her reaction to that is her putting her head down, because she's kind of, I wouldn't say embarrassed, but it's this it's this sort of thing where I'm not ready to say that, because the first person to hear me say that should be him. So I'm not going to.
Even if you want to read it too, it might not even be romantic love. It's just like, it's a platonic love. Like, she has feelings for him that maybe she's not come to terms with all the way, but there are feelings there. So,
I mean, it's definitely been hinted as romantic as before, though, right? It's not being platonic.
Oh yeah, no, you're not coming up that whole cloth, but I'm just saying, like in the terms of this too, like through that is like she's realizing this as Tefe is telling her, and just also the whole idea that Levi's existing in the green as an idea, because that seems to be the central theme of this issue, is how ideas persist. And I don't want to say it's only because of her, but it's, her belief in him is what's keeping him tethered to the green.
Yeah, and
I love that concept.
Yeah, and it's kind of represented when we see him, like Swamp Thing's basically using all of the power he has in the green to, because everything around him is rotted, everything around him is like lifeless, but there's one rose in front of him, one flower that's sort of, I mean, I think when it starts off, like there's like a radius around him that's still like it's summer, it's still green, but it's kind of withering and dying, and he's putting all of his energy into just this one rose. And I kind of read that as him sort of just clinging to life. Like, this is like the one, if he can keep his focus and sort of keep this one rose alive long enough for Jennifer to find him, then he'll survive. So it's really beautiful. It's really ethereal. And Swamp Thing, I think some of the best Swamp Thing is kind of ethereal. Like, it's kind of the vibe that it goes for. So I loved all this, and I loved that it's taking this relationship between Levi and Jennifer and making it something that it's built over the course of the series, but now is like the linchpin of like how it's going to, like how he's going to survive and how we're going to actually have a like a comeback for him and potentially then solve the problem that's been set up in the other plot, because clearly we're building to like our big villain of the series here, because the remains of Levi's brother are being used in an operation to turn Mr. Pilgrim into, basically make him become like an elemental being, like a Swamp Thing.
So number one, I thought that was the desert guy that we got introduced to way back. Not Levi's brother. Levi's brother he's more woodsy and had the horns, right?
He did. I just assumed it's because he was burned. But you may be right.
Yeah, I felt this because of the purple tinge. I thought
No,
this was
the reason why I thought
spirit.
it was his brother is because at one point they mentioned his brother.
Yeah, so I took that as he's fused with his brother, right? And that they talk about these vessels. What's the word? I don't have the book in front of me. But they have conduits, right? And that the conduits they express onto the green as much as the green expresses onto them. So with Levi's brother, he was all just anger, right? And that anger infected, that idea infected the green, and that's what gave him his powers. And I feel that's what all of those spiky creatures that are surrounding Levi are representations of his brother's anger. And that eventually he's going to fuse with them, right? And basically come to terms with his brother and whatnot. So that's what I took that was, because he was there with his brother when they got flash frozen. So this guy, because if I remember it right, the desert entity was what was brought to Pilgrim Industries, and that's what they are doing the operation on, because that's the thing that just craves more, right? It's the desert; it wants to consume. But yeah, I could be wrong too, but that's how I read it.
No, I was convinced that they mentioned the brother's name when they were doing the operation.
Mm-hmm.
When they were doing the surgery, which is why I was thinking it was him. But no, you're probably right. It is probably the desert being. It makes more sense. But yeah, so Woodrow's like sort of like helping with this operation, and like the board members of the company are all kind of like waiting to see if he evolves into the next stage of humanity. Basically, he's like, "Oh, we're going to overcome the fact that your mind and body deteriorate. I'm going to become something else." And so they do this operation. I really like the art here as well. Actually, all the layouts with the purple backgrounds, and there's the page where he's lying on the table.
Yeah,
and it kind of like so it's 8 panels, and every other panel it sort of alternates between the 2 tables, where one's the body of Mr. Pilgrim and one's the body of the elemental being, and it's like a really trippy page with the surgeon sort of like opening him up and putting parts of this being inside him to see if he takes to it. Really nice stuff. Obviously, all the art of Swamp Thing and the green's great. When Teffy takes Jennifer into the green, she actually thinks they're in the wrong place because it looks different, and Teffy's like, no, this is the same place, but the green's in a pretty just rough spot right now. And yeah, Teffy's got this weird stuff where she sort of like she stretches her fingers out like she's Swamp Thing, but it's still like flesh colored, so it's kind of icky and gross.
Yeah, because she's an elemental too in the same way Swamp Thing is, but she's still human. Like she doesn't have that tie to the green the way that Swamp Thing does, where it becomes him.
Yeah, so it's gross. It's just bloody.
We haven't seen anything
messy.
like this. Yeah, it's unsettling, which is what I love when it gets to the kind of more of the horror aspects. It's this kind of body horror-y stuff here, which is I feel like Mike Perkins is perfect for, because the sketchiness and whatnot, like you said, it makes you feel gross.
Yeah, no, the art in this was great, pretty much all the way through. Every scene was very distinct from each other as well, but like the way it used the layouts and the coloring to just like emphasize certain things. But as always, it's the moodiness on the faces and the kind of the somber nature of the art that I think just fits this book perfectly. But yeah, so Pilgrim wakes up after the operation and he starts coughing up. And you think, oh, this is going bad. But then you get the full page reveal where he's like, no, I feel great. But now he's got like black vomit all down his chest and his hair's went all black and long. And it's like he's turned into some monstrosity. And it's like, oh, the boardroom are either excited or terrified. Hard to tell which at this point.
Yep.
So
probably both. Knowing boards, they're like, we can make so much money off of this, but I'm still kind of scared of it.
Yeah, so basically this, what he's just done is like sort of like triggered something, and it looks like Jennifer is about to find Swamp Thing, but we also basically see that like places around the universe, like we see a Green Lantern kind of react to like some law of reality has just broken because this guy has merged with this elemental being. And then we get this tease at the end of a character who's also noticing that something's happening in Motor City, who's got like metallic feet. So that's a guy named Jack Hawksmoor, who I looked up. He's from Stormwatch. I never heard of him.
I'm so proud of you, Pete. Usually I'm the guy that looks all this stuff up.
Well, I was like, do you know what it is? It's not so much that I need to know. It's more that I'm worried that I'm supposed to know and I'm just being an idiot and I've forgotten. So I'm just I was confirming it was someone that I wouldn't know. It was basically what I was doing.
So I remember the name Jack Hawksmoor. Like I haven't encountered it, but I had no idea who it was. And then I looked them up, and they're part of Wildstorm or Stormwatch, right?
Stormwatch, yeah.
Stormwatch, yeah.
But yeah, this character sort of comes in as if he's sensing something, and he says that something bad's happened to Detroit, and it looks like it's covered in rot or something. It looks really bad. But
it is Detroit. It's seen better days.
Yeah. So I don't know where we're going with this character because I don't really know anything about him. But clearly he's going to come into the story, and he's sensing that something's changed in the fabric of like the way the world works because of this science experiment gone wrong. I think what's smart about this is that it takes this guy who really has been the main villain, Mr. Pilgrim, throughout the whole book, but is turning him into something that will actually be a fight with Swamp Thing. And like so many Swamp Thing villains are these mad scientists or like over the top people who do experiments to become something and it goes wrong. It always works. There's something about it that just does click. Maybe it's because I don't know. Maybe it just fits the tone of Swamp Thing because you can argue that it is overdone, but it made sense to me that he was going to start doing experiments with himself.
With the whole idea, so I just looked up as we were talking. That elemental is called the Pale Wanderer, right? And what he represented was the guy that went off to live in isolation in the desert and was consumed by the greed of because he was a prospector and him wanting to be consumed by all the mining and whatever. Him fusing with this Pilgrim guy who works for Prescott he is almost the personification, the idea of greed. And yeah, sure, we've got mad scientist stuff. Like we have Anton Arcane and we've had the Rot and all this other stuff. But what Ram V seems to want to do with the concept of ideas, and that's what shapes the world around us, the idea of greed being the ultimate villain of like an earth elemental.
Yeah, I mean that's been a core theme of this book the whole time. The idea of them wanting to go in and take down the forest that Levi's family were around. It was all based on greed. Like everything's been about greed.
And that was before he caused all that destruction. Before this pilgrim character was attached to the Pale Wanderer. Now he has a conduit to whatever the elemental realm is, and it makes him that much more of a threat. So yeah, so him creating this new antagonist. And what that represents is just, again, Ram V working on multiple different levels.
Yeah. So a really good return, honestly. It was a great issue. It was really easy to slip back into. And if anything, I remember issue 10 being good, but not as good as the previous few. And I think this one is like probably one of the strongest issues the entire book's had. So basically what I'm saying is I'm a happy boy. I'm a happy Swamp Thing boy.
I'm trying to see if this is collected all 10 or is it 5 and 5?
I have no idea.
Because I do want to revisit this. Because after reading this,
they could do a 16 issue deluxe when it's all done.
Yeah, no, but I want to read this now with this in mind. But yeah, it seems it's just Future State, Swamp Thing 1 through 2, and then Swamp Thing 1 through 4 are the first. That was just.
That makes sense because then it'll be 5 to 10, and then this to 16. Yeah,
right.
It'll be 3 trades. Yeah.
So yeah, and that's good. But yeah, I definitely want to revisit this just to have all of that so the story can fill in. Because again, remembering that the Pale Wanderer right now was this personification of greed makes this land a whole lot better on this time. But this is always a book that is better the more we talk it through.
Oh yeah, like for sure.
Now. Like I always liked the issues, but it's not until sitting and talking to you and Connor that everything starts to bubble up and you really start to see where it sticks out, and I end up liking it a whole lot more than I already did.
Yeah, I think my favorite thing about Swamp Thing, just as a concept, is that generally speaking, all the stories I like, they tend to have like this sense of sadness and tragedy, but there's usually a sort of hope within it, and the idea that there can be something good in there that'll thrive, and Swamp Thing usually represents that to me. And here, you have the heart, the love between Levi and Jennifer kind of being this heart to the center of an otherwise really oppressing reality that's currently going on around them. And I always like love that, the heart in the darkness kind of thing. So yeah, really good stuff. What are you giving the Swamp Thing out of 10?
I'm giving this a 9.
Hard to fault that. Yeah, I think I'll agree and give it the 9 as well. Really enjoyed this issue. It's good stuff.